that means they will reunite.
Wow.
Finding out that there's an...
As Amy Slaton walked slowly up the steps of the courthouse, cameras flashing and reporters shouting her name, her thoughts were not on the chaos surrounding her. Instead, they drifted to the two little boys who loved her unconditionally, to the man she called her boyfriend who had promised her stability, and to the plan she had been building for a future that suddenly felt like it was slipping away. I've got two babies that love me. I've got a wonderful boyfriend. I'm about to move into a bigger place, get married. She whispered to herself almost like a prayer. So much is at stake. And I'm scared. For years, fans of TLC's hit reality show 1000 Delby Sisters had rallied around Amy. She was portrayed as the more grounded, responsible Slaton sister, the one who wanted to better herself, become a mother, and create the kind of family she never had growing up. But in an instant, that image cracked. Devastation spread through the fan base as headlines broke. Amy Slaton had been arrested for the second time on serious drug charges. For viewers who had come to see her as the heart of the show, this wasn't just a personal fall. It was one of the most shocking and upsetting scandals the franchise had ever faced. What made this incident even more disturbing was the way it unfolded. What should have been a harmless family outing to the Tennessee Safari Park turned into a nightmare. Witnesses described the day as bright, sunny, even joyful at first. Amy, looking tired but genuinely happy, carried snacks and supplies, laughing with her boys as they ran ahead to look at the animals. Fans who recognized her asked for pictures, and Amy smiled obligingly, eager to show she was more than just a TV personality. She was a mother living her life, creating memories for her kids. For a while, it was almost refreshing. Away from the cameras, away from scripted drama. Amy seemed to be just like anyone else, a mom who wanted her children to experience something special. But within hours, that image shattered. The turning point came at the camel enclosure. Trying to get closer so her kids could marvel at the enormous animal, Amy leaned over the fence. In a sudden, terrifying moment, the camel lunged and bit her arm. Screams erupted. Children cried. Parents panicked. Witnesses said Amy's face twisted in pain as she clutched her arm, shaking and crying out. Staff members rushed in, pulling the animal back and ushering the crowd away. It all happened so fast. One onlooker later recalled, one second she was showing her kids this big, goofy camel, and the next she was screaming and shaking. People didn't know if she was seriously hurt. Park staff immediately called emergency medical personnel. An ambulance arrived, treating Amy's injury on the spot. Local police also responded, as they are required to do in cases involving animal bites. At first, it seemed like the incident was under control. Amy was shaken, but able to smile weakly at her kids, assuring them everything was okay. To most people, it looked like an odd, unfortunate accident that would be resolved with a bandage, a tetanus shot, and maybe a story to tell later. But then things took a darker turn. During questioning, officers noted Amy's behavior. She was evasive, fidgety, and increasingly irritable. Simple questions seemed to frustrate her. Her answers were scattered and her nerves were visible. Something felt off. Out of caution, officers decided to check the car she had driven to the park, which was parked just outside the gates. What they discovered stunned everyone. Inside the vehicle, within reach of the back seat where her two young sons had been sitting, officers allegedly found marijuana, far more alarmingly, hallucinogenic mushrooms. Not hidden, not secured, but in a place easily accessible to her children. What had begun as a bizarre but manageable incident with a camel suddenly escalated into a potential child endangerment case. The arrest happened swiftly. Witnesses recalled the heartbreaking sight of Amy pleading with officers, begging them not to take her away in front of her children. But there was no choice. The drugs were too close to the kids. The risk too severe. Amy was placed in handcuffs as her boys cried uncontrollably, reaching out for their mother. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. One bystander said, her kids were screaming, "Kay?" And she was sobbing, saying she didn't mean for any of this to happen. But it was too late. By the time the story hit local news, the scandal was already exploding online. Videos of the arrest circulated on social media. Hashtags like #SaveAMYSKids and #TLC-Do-Something trended within hours. Longtime fans who had once defended Amy now expressed anger and disappointment. Many felt betrayed. "She was supposed to be the good one fan wrote on Twitter. "The sister who had it together. How do you let drugs near your kids?" The outrage was amplified by timing. This was not Amy's first arrest. It was her second. To critics, it signaled a troubling pattern, one that TLC could no longer gloss over. Online forums buzzed with resurfaced court documents, rumors of past drug use, and speculation about how fame had affected Amy's judgment. To many, the image of Amy as the responsible, nurturing Slaton sister was collapsing. The Tennessee Safari Park quickly issued a statement distancing itself from the chaos. They clarified that the camel bite was minor and that the true issue had nothing to do with the park itself. But with what authorities found afterward, visitor safety and child welfare are always our top priorities, the statement read. Translation, don't blame us. This was Amy's problem. Meanwhile, TLC stayed silent. The network that had built an empire on the Slaton family's struggles suddenly found itself in a corner. If they ignored the incident, they risked being accused of exploiting children and looking the other way on abuse. If they addressed it directly, they risked tanking one of their most profitable reality shows. For days, their silence only fueled speculation. Fans began to wonder what else the network might be hiding about the Slaton family. The public conversation shifted quickly from shock to outrage to deeper concern. This wasn't just about Amy's personal choices anymore. It was about child safety. Commentators, bloggers, and child advocacy groups began weighing in. Some demanded immediate intervention from Child Protective Services. Others debated whether Amy should lose custody of her children altogether. Online forums lit up with theories. Was Amy buckling under the pressure of being a single mom and a reality TV star? Was she self-medicating with drugs to cope? Or was this simply reckless, selfish behavior that put her children in danger? Whatever the explanation, one thing was clear. This was no longer just tabloid drama. This was criminal, undeniable, and devastatingly public. Within days, Amy's mugshot spread like wildfire across the internet. It was on gossip blogs, fan pages, and mainstream tabloids. The once bright, bubbly woman who proudly shared updates about her children's milestones now looked broken, her face hollow. Her eyes downcast, her spirit visibly crushed. To some, it was a sobering reminder that fame doesn't protect you from downfall. To others, it was proof that Amy had been spiraling for longer than anyone wanted to admit. For years, fans had cheered her on as she tried to lose weight, as she fought to become a mother, as she rebuilt her life after divorce. They rooted for her as the sister who always seemed to have her heart in the right place. But now, many were questioning whether she had crossed a line too far to ever return. And so the narrative shifted. From camel bite to courtroom, from mother to mugshot, Amy Slaton's story had become one of reality TV's darkest scandals. The image of her children crying as she was taken away in handcuffs will not soon be forgotten by fans, or by the network that helped make her famous. What happens next is uncertain. Will Amy fight to regain public trust? Will TLC finally break their silence? Will Child Protective Services intervene permanently? These are the questions haunting both fans and critics alike. But one thing is undeniable. This incident, bizarre and tragic, has forever altered the way the world sees Amy Slaton. Once celebrated as a symbol of perseverance and motherhood, she now stands as a cautionary tale, a reminder that the line between reality, TV, entertainment, and real-life tragedy is dangerously thin. And for Amy, this may well be the beginning of the hardest chapter she has ever faced.
Camel bit out of her.
What is that?
Despite how shocking and devastating part one of Amy Slaton's story was, the camel bite incident and her second arrest were not the true beginning. They were merely the breaking point, the moment when a long troubled history finally erupted into public view. To truly understand the outrage, the heartbreak, and the disbelief that swept through the 1,000 Sisters fan base. We have to rewind the clock. We have to go back before the safari park, before TLC cameras followed her every move, before Amy was elevated as the good Slaton sister. Because the reality is this: Amy's troubles did not appear out of thin air. They had been simmering under the surface for years, hidden in court records, whispered about in small-town gossip circles, brushed aside in interviews, but rarely confronted head-on. For years, Amy enjoyed a reputation as the responsible sibling, the warm, funny, relatable one, the sister who was supposed to break the family's cycle of dysfunction. In contrast, Tammy was portrayed as difficult, combative, and unpredictable. Viewers bought into this image completely. They rallied behind Amy as she married young, fought for weight loss surgery, and fulfilled her lifelong dream of becoming a mother. She became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the chaos of reality TV, there could be a success story. But that carefully crafted persona was never the full truth. Beneath the surface, cracks were already forming, and those cracks would one day split wide open. Let's go back to Amy's first brush with the law, a chapter of her life that was rarely discussed, almost deliberately forgotten. Long before headlines screamed about drugs and child endangerment, Amy had already faced serious legal trouble. According to court documents, she had been arrested on charges of possession of prohibited narcotics years before the safari park scandal ever happened. At the time, details were murky and coverage was minimal. Fans who stumbled across the story chalked it up to a youthful mistake, an unfortunate misunderstanding, something that could be shrugged off. TLC never mentioned it on camera, never hinted at it in storylines, never allowed that darker reality to intrude on the carefully curated image of Amy as the stable sister. But in hindsight, that early arrest wasn't a blip. It was a red flag, a warning of patterns to come. The question must be asked, was that first arrest a one-off mistake? Or was it the first step in a downward spiral that eventually culminated in her second, much more devastating arrest? To answer that, we have to examine Amy's background, the world she grew up in, the environment that shaped her choices. Born and raised in Dixon, Kentucky, Amy's childhood was far from idyllic. Poverty loomed large. Opportunities were scarce. Health struggles ran deep in her family, creating a cycle of poor habits and survival-based living. Food became comfort. Television became escape. And according to those who knew her in her teens and early adult years, unhealthy coping mechanisms went beyond overeating. Alcohol, marijuana, party drugs. These substances floated in and out of her life in ways that were rarely discussed publicly, but never entirely absent. In a small town like Dixon, whispers stayed local. Police run-ins or late-night partying rarely made it beyond county lines. To the outside world, Amy was invisible until TLC came knocking. But those early behaviors mattered. They planted the seeds of a reputation that insiders say was never as squeaky clean as the show made it appear. When TLC launched 15 Sisters, Amy was framed as the underdog heroine. She had her quirks, sure, but she was painted as loving, maternal, grounded. Tammy was cast as the villain, the sister who refused to change, who lashed out at family, who spiraled on camera. But the truth is, both sisters had demons. One's demons were broadcast openly. The others were tucked neatly behind the scenes, hidden until the cracks became too large to ignore. Even before the camel bite scandal, warning signs were visible to those paying close attention. Take, for example, Amy's messy divorce from Michael Halterman. On the surface, fans saw the collapse of a marriage strained by differences and the stress of raising two young children. But behind the scenes, there were darker undertones: arguments, financial instability, ongoing custody disputes. Divorce is always painful, but for Amy, it became another stressor added to an already fragile foundation. Insiders now suggest that she may have turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms, including drugs, to manage the pressure. Then there was her behavior online. Fans recall cryptic late-night social media posts that seemed uncharacteristic of the bubbly, family-focused woman they thought they knew. Sometimes she posted about being overwhelmed. Other times, her tone was erratic, scattered, or unusually emotional. At the time, supporters brushed it off as exhaustion from motherhood, filming, and divorce stress. But in hindsight, many now view those posts as red flags, early indicators of instability and perhaps substance abuse. And then there were the rumors. In her hometown, whispers circulated that Amy occasionally partied too hard, that she went out drinking or experimenting while her kids were left in the care of others. On the internet, fans defended her passionately, dismissing the rumors as malicious gossip. After all, how could Amy, the devoted mom shown on TLC, also be a neglectful partygoer? But after her second arrest, those same rumors resurfaced with renewed credibility. Astute fans have also gone back to old episodes of 1000 Delby's Sisters, rewatching with fresh eyes. Suddenly, certain moments stand out. A scene where Amy seemed strangely unfocused. A meltdown that felt more intense than usual. A quiet glance that suggested more was happening off camera than viewers were allowed to see. Reality shows are notorious for heavy editing, for crafting narratives that hide as much as they reveal. But fans now question whether the editing was also protecting Amy, shielding her from the truth of her own behavior. Which brings us to the question of TLC's role. How much of this downward spiral belongs to Amy herself, and how much responsibility lies with the network that turned her life into entertainment? When 1000 Delby Sisters premiered, Amy's life was modest. She wanted a family, a home, and a healthier body. But the moment cameras entered the picture, everything shifted. Suddenly, Amy was a public figure. Millions of strangers dissected her every move. Memes were made. Tabloids followed her. She went from anonymity to being a household name almost overnight. For some people, fame is empowering. For others, it is destructive. For Amy, whose foundation was already shaky, it may have been gasoline on an already smoldering fire. With fame came money, TLC, paychecks, sponsorships, brand deals. For someone who had grown up with so little, it was intoxicating. But money also brought access. Access to new people, new environments, and new temptations. Insiders say that reality TV fame often opens doors to party lifestyles, including drugs and alcohol that would have otherwise been out of reach. For a woman already vulnerable, the combination of stress, attention, and temptation may have pushed Amy toward choices she might not have made otherwise. It's not just speculation. Many believe her use of marijuana and mushrooms wasn't about recreation, but about escape. The weight of single motherhood, public scrutiny, and her collapsing marriage may have been unbearable. Substances, in that context, became coping mechanisms. Dangerous ones. Ones that eventually put her children at risk. Looking back, the writing was always on the wall. The first arrest, the erratic posts, the divorce, the whispers of partying, the quiet signs of instability. But fans ignored them. They wanted to believe in Amy, the good sister, the loving mom, the redemption story. They wanted her to succeed, especially in contrast to Tammy's very public struggles. And so the warning signs were brushed aside until they could no longer be ignored. When the Tennessee Safari Park incident exploded into the headlines, it wasn't just about a camel or even about drugs. It was about betrayal. Fans who had defended Amy through thick and thin now felt deceived. TLC, who had edited her into the good sibling, suddenly looked complicit in hiding the truth. And Amy herself was revealed not as a role model, but as a deeply flawed woman whose poor decisions had finally caught up with her. This is why the outrage was so intense. It wasn't just the shock of the drugs found in her car. It was the realization that Amy's downward trajectory had been visible all along, and no one had stopped it. Not the network. Not her family. Not even her fans who cheered for her without asking harder questions. As we peel back the layers of Amy Slaton's past, one truth emerges clearly. The seeds of her downfall were planted years before the Safari Park scandal ever made headlines. And unless those deeper issues are confronted, her story risks repeating itself over and over again. Because what happened that day with the camel was not just a bizarre accident. It was the culmination of years of instability, ignored warning signs, and dangerous choices. And unless something changes, it may not be the last time Amy Slaton's name makes headlines for all the wrong reasons.
God, no, that is not it. We want you with him.
Fans are starting to doubt everything, questioning every belief they once held about. Amy Slaton, after news of her second arrest, shook the foundation of what many thought they knew. What began as whispers quickly erupted into a tidal wave of outrage and betrayal. On Reddit threads, a quick clean remarks like "we defended her for years and she was hiding all this" became common, echoing across hundreds of comments. For years, loyal fans fought against critics who doubted Amy's ability to parent, who said she was reckless or incapable. These fans believed they were defending a good mother, a redemption story, a woman who had overcome pain to fight for her kids. But now, many feel deceived. They say their greatest fears have been confirmed. And worse, that they were unknowingly defending someone hiding serious issues all along. Some fans go further, insisting that the blame should not fall only on Amy, but also on TLC, the network. They argue, purposefully crafted her image as the nurturing sister, the loving mom, the emotional anchor of the show, while Tammy was edited into the villain, the chaos, the problem. But what if those roles were never the full truth? What if had Amy's prior drug problems and her initial arrest been revealed sooner? The audience's entire perception of her would have been different. Would Amy still have been celebrated as the loving mother figure, the sister who made it out? Or would the foundation of 1,000 LB sisters have crumbled years earlier? These are the questions now flooding fan spaces, the speculation growing darker by the hour. And then comes the twist no one could have predicted: the shadow of Tammy Slaton. For years, Tammy was the one in crisis, a sister whose near-death experiences, explosive meltdowns, and health emergencies were constant fixtures of the show. Amy, in contrast, was framed as the stable one, the sibling who somehow held everything together. But the narrative has flipped. Tammy is now on a redemption arc, having lost weight, found love, and even regained her independence. Meanwhile, Amy is the one facing legal jeopardy. Fans describe the shift as something out of the Twilight Zone. The sister who once begged Tammy to straighten out her life, who pleaded with her to think about her future, is now accused of reckless and illegal behavior. And unlike her first arrest, this second one is far more serious. Legal experts point out that repeat offenders often face harsher consequences from judges and prosecutors, especially when child endangerment is involved. In Amy's case, the charges could mean jail time, probation, or steep fines. Mandatory parenting classes and drug counseling are almost certain. And the involvement of Child Protective Services adds another devastating possibility: restrictions on her custody, or, in the worst-case scenario, losing her parenting rights entirely. For fans, the thought is unbearable. They aren't just worried about Amy's freedom, they are terrified about what will happen to her children. As the reality sets in, the story becomes clear. Amy's second arrest wasn't just a random mistake. It was the result of years of ignored warning signs, hidden struggles, and perhaps a reality TV system that prioritized ratings over reality. The ignored cracks in Amy's image have widened into a full collapse. And yet, even with everything already revealed, the most explosive part of this saga is still ahead. The backlash from fans, the silence from TLC, and the mounting calls for justice. Within hours of Amy's mugshot hitting the internet, social media erupted in a frenzy of betrayal, heartache, and rage. Once the fan favorite Amy is now being dragged online as irresponsible, dangerous, and unfit. Her carefully cultivated image as the devoted mom, the strong sister, the one who had it together compared to Tammy, was destroyed overnight. On Twitter, hashtags like #JusticeForTheKids and #AmySlatonArrested began trending. One devastated fan tweeted, "We all defended Amy for years. She was the good mom, the one we could root for. And this whole time, she was hiding this. I feel sick. I feel deceived." On Reddit, discussion threads ballooned into hundreds of comments. Some argued fiercely that Amy should lose custody, declaring her actions unforgivable. Others countered that what she needs is help, not condemnation, that rehabilitation, not punishment, is the only way forward. One post that gained traction read, "This isn't about hating Amy. It's about protecting those kids. She needs support, but those children need safety first." Meanwhile, TikTok exploded with fan-made videos, some splicing Amy's mugshot alongside clips of her children from the show, captioned with gut-wrenching text like, "These babies didn't ask for this." Others stitched together montages of Amy's good mom moments from past seasons, contrasting them with the headlines of her arrest, ending with captions like, "Was it all a lie?" The emotional intensity is palpable. And through it all, one question dominates. Where is TLC? The network has stayed completely silent. No statements, no press releases, no reassurance to fans, nothing. And this silence is only making things worse. Fans remember how TLC capitalized on scandals in other shows, cheating scandals in 90 Day Fiancé, family implosions in Sister Wives, but Amy's case is different. Here, children are involved. Drugs are involved. Criminal charges are involved. Continuing to feature, Amy risks accusations of exploiting illegal activity and profiting off of children in danger. But dropping her risks destroying one of TLC's most profitable franchises. Fans see TLC's silence as cowardly. On Facebook fan pages, furious comments pile up. "If TLC doesn't cut ties with Amy after this, I'm done watching." Another wrote, "They'd rather make money off those poor kids than protect them. It's disgusting." A viral TikTok put it even more bluntly. Amy is on drugs. Chris is battling health issues. Tammy nearly died multiple times. How much longer is TLC going to milk this family before something truly irreversible happens? The irony isn't lost on fans. Amy, the sister who once represented stability's unraveling before their eyes. Tammy, the sister once portrayed as hopeless, is now thriving. Some viewers are even predicting that TLC will quietly pivot the show toward Tammy's redemption arc, gradually phasing Amy out as her legal troubles deepen. The thought terrifies Amy's remaining defenders, who see it as the ultimate betrayal of her story. But what makes this scandal uniquely horrifying isn't just the fall of a reality star. This involvement of Amy's two young children. Reports suggest the children were present when the drugs were discovered in Amy's vehicle. And this detail has pushed fans from outrage into full-blown panic. Parenting advocates, lawyers, and ordinary viewers alike are horrified. One comment on a parenting forum read, "This isn't TV drama anymore. This is child endangerment, plain and simple. CPS has to step in." Another wrote, "If this happened in any other home, there would already be an emergency custody hearing. Fame shouldn't protect kids from the law." The fan community remains deeply divided on the question of custody. Some argue passionately that Amy deserves a chance to recover, to clean up her life, to prove she can still be the mother her children need. Others argue just as passionately that Amy's arrest proves she is unfit, and that the children must come first, even if it means removing them from her care. The debate is raw, emotional, and deeply personal. What makes this even more tragic is that Amy herself once positioned her children as the very reason she fought for change. She said she got weight loss surgery for them. She said she left her unhappy marriage for them. She said they were her motivation, her reason to keep going. And now her downfall centers around those same children who may pay the ultimate price for her mistakes. For fans, the betrayal cuts deep. They didn't just root for Amy as a TV character, they rooted for her as a mother, a symbol of resilience, as proof that love for your children could push you to change. Now, those same fans are left asking whether they ever knew the real Amy at all. And as the silence from TLC grows louder, as the outrage on social media intensifies, and as legal experts warn of severe consequences, one chilling reality sets in. The show that was once about family, transformation, and survival has become a scandal engulfed in betrayal, addiction, and the possible destruction of a family. The fans who once cheered for Amy are now her heart.